Welcome to our first Sunday episode. Today we're going to go over a diesel heater install, as well as finishing our electrical wall and kind of talking about how we've done things. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
What Becky and I are working on right now is just marking holes in the floor and drilling them. Becky's just cleaning up a little bit. You can see here on the floor, this is where we have our heater. Our heater's going to go under the bed there. So that's the heater. So as you can see, it kind of fits underneath the lip of our wheel wall box. So as you can see, we left some room in front of it because the hot air comes out the front. So we're going to have some 3-inch piping that comes off, and it's going to come across and basically go into the living room on the floor here. And we're also probably going to have it tee and come up this wall and then just blow back this way. So it's going to heat kind of like under this area here, mainly so our water tank never gets close to freezing in the wintertime, and to kind of try to combat some of the draft that comes in these back doors. Yeah, there it is there. You can see that's daylight. So these doors have a little bit of gaps around, you know. We might be able to seal them up a little bit better than they are now, but yeah, so we're gonna get this heater mounted in the floor, this diesel heater, and then we're gonna go underneath and see if we can't run the fuel line for it. The way we're mounting this heater is a little different than the way you're supposed to mount the heater. Basically, we're just gonna space it off the floor a little bit. It's gonna give us a lot more clearance, and instead of drilling a huge hole in the floor of the van, we're gonna drill little ones. So the intake and exhaust are these two holes here. So what we realized though is that the exhaust pipe is actually a little thinner, smaller than the intake pipe. These two hole saw bits are different sizes. So this is the exhaust, this is going to be the intake. All right, so we're gonna jump underneath the van now and just clean up those holes that we just drilled on the inside, and actually put a little paint around the edges just so it doesn't rust anytime in the future. It's always a good idea to do that whenever you drill a hole in a vehicle or any piece of metal, really, for that matter. Okay, so as you can see up there, that's our holes. All I did was actually cut around each one of them with the razor blade, cleaned it up really well with some brake cleaner and a rag, and then I just spray painted it. So after we install everything, we're gonna come down here with some silicone and put silicone around each one of those holes so that nothing ever gets into the van. That's basically all we did down here. So let's go back inside. It's really cold.
So we got the diesel heater running. I don't know if you can hear it, you might be able to. Currently it's just temporarily wired up to our fuse panel because the wire will be going underneath the bed, but it was really easy to install because we had an auxiliary hookup for the tank since our van came with one.
So the reason why our van has an auxiliary fuel port is because Sprinter vans, you're not supposed to idle them, and the reason you're not supposed to idle them is because all the emissions and stuff, it'll basically just stop working. It just gets clogged up. So they have a little, essentially exactly what we have for a heater, but it heats up the engine coolant. So you can set the van as a timer. It'll start this little diesel heater, essentially heat the engine block all by itself, and that way when you get in your car, you can just turn the key and drive. You don't have to wait 10 minutes for it to warm up. So that is why our van and many other Sprinter vans have an auxiliary fuel port. All right. Well, welcome back, guys. You've watched me play with electrical all night, but basically, we initially building the van. You order a bunch of parts and pieces, and you think you know what you're ordering, and you think you're ordering what you need, and sometimes you don't get what you need. And sometimes you get everything, but you need one more thing, and sometimes you just get the wrong part altogether. So we've had not a whole lot of it with the electrical, but a little bit of it. So we ended up getting a battery shunt, or a negative terminal shunt. So it's a thing, a lot of people get them in their vans. It's really how you can accurately track your battery percentage and make sure you're not gonna, go past the point of no return with lithium and AGM and so forth. So I know Victron makes one that's very popular. It's a circle gauge. We opted to just get the Renogy one. It was about $100. It's on the cheaper side of these shunts, but you know what? It's gonna pair well with everything we've got so far. It's rated to 500 amps. This system will never have 500 amps go through it. But I decided, you know what? Let's finish the electrical wall and then it's done. So that's what we did tonight. So I still have yet to, switch the master power on. But this is basically what we're ended up with here. So not much has changed over here. Not much has changed right here. But this is what we've added tonight. So that's the actual shunt itself. So basically, the negative terminal comes off your battery, goes into this side of the shunt, and then all of the load sides of all the load negatives or grounds are on that side. So we've actually only got 2 bolts here, but what we did is we doubled up these wires. So there's one on the back and one on the front. So there's 2 there, there's 2 here. So these 4 are, I believe, the charge controller itself, these 2 12-volt panels, and our inverter. And the only other thing to go on here is going to be the chassis ground, which is this guy right here. Comes out of the wall, it's grounded the chassis within the wall. So that's gonna come out and basically just go right like that. But I didn't do that yet, and it's honestly not necessary until we basically hook up our alternator, which is this big wire here. So you can see there's a fuse, and another fuse. There is no fuse to our alternator. The main reason is the other end of this wire goes just up to the front there, and it's actually underneath the driver's chair, and it has nothing on the other end of it. So if we were to connect that fuse and then turn the power on, essentially we have a live wire that is then under the driver's chair. We're not going to put that fuse in for a while, not until we deal with that up front. But yeah, I mean, I think I'll just double check, but I think everything's tight in here, as far as the things that matter. There is the power to the shunt, this little red wire here. So that comes off of our battery terminal. So this is the wire that comes off the battery straight to here. So the power is always going to be to the shunt, which is what we want. So yeah, I think this is basically set up. This is the actual module itself. So I'm gonna plug that in. But first, this is actually the fuse that came with our diesel heater. Same size fuses for up there. So this was a 20 amp fuse. We're just gonna put it in this panel here. And then we're gonna turn this master switch and hook this guy up and see what our battery's actually at. So let's get started. So you can program this to whatever type of battery you have. In our case, we have 100 amp hours of lithium. In the future, we're probably going to expand, and we have the ability to make that battery monitor understand that we have now 200 amps of battery. Essentially forecast how long your battery is going to last for, how many amps you're using, how many watts you're using, or the opposite. So it can tell how much you're charging, essentially how long until your battery is fully charged. And that's kind of necessary in one of these, especially with batteries, and we don't really have endless amounts of power in here, so we need to be able to know, okay, can't have all the lights on all the time, it's gonna only last another 12 hours or whatever.
So that's a wrap for Sunday's episode. On
on Wednesday, we're going to wire our main switch panel that has all of the switches to our lights. However, we discovered that we really don't like the switches we ordered. We're also going to build a propane locker, which will house our household propane tank in our garage. So we'll catch you guys up on Wednesday.